In order to identify supplementary and vertical angles, we need to understand how they are formed. So supplementary angles are whenever we have two angles that end up making a straight line. So if you saw how I just finished making this figure, I started off with a straight line and I split it up into two angles, one angle here and another angle here. So this is called supplementary angles. Now, this could consist of multiple angles like this, where it's created out of three angles. But the important part is that the angles form a straight line. Now, vertical angles are a bit different. It's whenever two lines intersect. So let's say I have this line here and another line that intersects that line. With this intersection, we form two pairs of vertical angles. So vertical angles are angles that you can think of are kind of across or on opposite sides of another. So if we look at one of the angles of this figure, let's say we're looking at this angle up here, the angle on the opposite side of this would be down here at the bottom left corner. These two angles are exactly the same, so we say that they are vertical angles. In the same manner, if we look at this angle here, so this angle here, the opposite side of this angle would be this angle over here. These two angles are exactly the same. Now, they're not the same as this other angle, right? They're completely different. But these two angles on opposite ends, they're always the same. They're called vertical angles. With that concept in mind, we should be able to solve these problems. So our problem says give one pair of supplementary angles and one pair of vertical angles in the figure below. So for supplementary angles, it doesn't matter what value we start with. If we wanted to, we could start with, let's say we start with the number 1. To find an angle that's supplementary to 1, we need to find an angle that makes a straight line along with this 1. So if I kind of highlight the angle of 1, this is the angle of 1. If I'm trying to get a straight line out of it, I either need to extend this line to the right, or I can extend this bottom line upwards. Either way is correct as long as you choose one or the other. So if we stick with this line that goes straight up, we'll notice that there's a straight line running from the top to the bottom, or from the bottom to the top. What two angles make up this straight line? Well, it would be the angle 1 and the angle 5. So my answer for A could be 1 and 5. And we're done with that problem. So now we move on to vertical angles. Let's say I want to stick with the number 1. And again, you can stick with any angle that you want. If we stick with the angle 1, we need to find a vertical angle, or we need to find an angle that's directly to the opposite side of the angle 1. Well, if the angle 1 is here, then the opposite side or the opposite corner of this angle will be the angle of 6, which looks like this. And you'll notice that they end up making a cross, which should always happen for vertical lines. That means that the angle 1 and angle 6 are vertical. This problem wants us to find two angle pairs, just like the other problem. They want us to find the vertical angles first, and then they want us to identify supplementary angles. Because we have a multitude of angles to choose from, it doesn't matter what we start with. This time, let's start with the number 4. So if I look at angle 4 and I kind of just highlight over it, this is the angle of 4. If I want to find its vertical angle, I need to look at the angle that's in the opposite corner of angle 4. And that would be this angle here, angle 2. So vertical angles, one of those pairs would be 4 and 2. And the order in which you write those does not matter. Now we need to find supplementary angles. So let's say we stick with that number 4. I want to find an angle that's supplementary, or that makes a straight line to angle 4. That means if I take angle 4, I can either extend this line to the left and right, and we would get this, or we can extend the bottom line upwards, and we'll get this line here. Doesn't matter what we do, let's actually stick with the original. So let's extend this left line to the right. And now we have a straight line, right? We have a straight line that runs from left to right like this. So if we have this line and we have that original part of the angle 4, then we'll notice that we have two angles that make up this line. It's not the 1 and 2, like this line right here doesn't really exist, so it's not 1 and 2. Instead, it would be angles 4 and angle 3. Together, they end up making this straight line going from left to right. So angles 4 and 3 are considered to be supplementary.